So there's always this slightly awkward moment at parties for me. When I'm meeting somebody new, the inevitable question about jobs comes up. You know, like, so what do you do? When I tell them I'm a medical physicist, I usually get some sort of deer in headlights look. So I kind of avoid it by just kind of throwing the question back on them. It's just really a hard job to describe quickly, but I'm going to try here anyway. In the field of radiation cancer treatment, there's biology, which the doctor handles, and then there's the radiation part, which is for me. I liken it a lot to the relationship between a NASCAR driver and a pit crew chief. If the doctor thinks the treatment needs more horsepower, then I know what it takes to get it. And part of getting it is knowing the ins and outs of the highly technical tools that we use to treat cancer with radiation. Now, if you drive down Brainerd or Signal Mountain Road often, you may have seen these billboards advertising CyberKnife at Erlanger. It's this tool that I spend most of my day with, and it's honestly one of the most impressive medical devices on the planet. So why share about the CyberKnife? Actually, in a previous life, I was a high school physics teacher, and I would have loved to show something like the CyberKnife to my students. So because I love to get excited about cool science things and share them with others, you guys get to be my students. So if my talk comes off more like a lesson than a presentation, I'm sorry, sort of. So the CyberKnife is a robotic radiosurgery device. Contrary to the name, there's actually no knife involved. Instead, we deliver very high doses of radiation over a short period of time, and it literally ablates cancer. Now, traditional treatments last 3 to 7 weeks, and with treatments every day, but the CyberKnife does it in 1 to 5 treatments and really big doses. So there are 2 basic parts. There's the robot, and then there's the LINAC, linear accelerator, the part that makes the radiation. The robot is actually the same kind they use over at the VW plant. They just, instead of a welder, mounted a LINAC on it and painted it medical white. So now this is, okay. Yeah, so we traditionally treat patients on a traditional LINAC like this, but it only rotates in one plane, which is unfortunate because we can only deliver it with a couple of beams. Now, why is that important? Imagine taking a paint roller and rolling it across a wall, and only the parts that the paint converge is going to actually be darker than the lines around it, the individual lines around it. This is actually what we do with radiation. We create a hot spot right at the tumor and treat it. So that's the benefit of the CyberKnife. And since the LINAC is on the CyberKnife is mounted to a robot instead of a wall, I can use all 6 of its rotating hinges to create a pattern which eventually forms about 150 beams to deliver the prescribed radiation dose. And this is the amazing part. All of those 150 beams are delivered with the accuracy of 1 millimeter. Now, we can't treat all cancers with CyberKnife, at least not yet. It was actually invented in '97 just for brain tumors, but we've actually expanded the capabilities to treat other areas, like these. There's also somewhat of a size restriction. We can only treat tumors up to about 2.5 inches before the large doses that we give become too toxic. But what about tumors that move, like in the lung, you might be asking yourself? How do we retain that 1 millimeter accuracy? This is really where the CyberKnife shines. It can actually be programmed to breathe with the patient. I watch this every day, and it's honestly, every day is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So how many of you have actually seen a CT of the chest before? Raise your hand. Anybody? I remember the first time I actually saw one of these in my graduate program, maybe like a few weeks in, the radiologist that was teaching the course asked, do you see anything abnormal in the scan? We didn't. The next slide actually shows where the abnormality is. This patient had a stage 1A upper lobe lesion, which basically means they have lung cancer. Stage 1 means that we caught it early, so that's good because that means that the treatment is going to be more effective. Historically, when a patient has a tumor like this, the standard is to treat it with surgery. Here's another example. It's called a lobectomy or wedge resection, where actually part of the healthy lung is removed along with the tumor. But oftentimes these lung cancer patients, they have some sort of compromisation. They're either fragile or have comorbidities of some kind. So to remove them surgically would actually cause more harm than good. So if a patient is unresectable with surgery, the doctor will bring a radiation prescription to me. And one of the cornerstones of my job is to deliver that radiation dose to the tumor without harming all the surrounding tissues. So I literally design treatment plans for each individual patient. So I know that there's several designer types in the crowd. So this is actually the part of my job that falls within the Pachakucha purview, at least the original one. I get to design treatment plans. This is the software that I use to design these treatment plans and the angles that I use for the 150 or so beams that ends up coming out of a treatment. The creativity that happens can come from situations like this where we're trying to treat a tumor that's next to something that's really sensitive, like the spinal cord. So since the CyberKnife can deliver beams from so many different angles, I can use that ability to shape the dose pattern to both treat the tumor and avoid the spinal cord. Now this is actually the first plan that I ever did. You can see that white spot right in the middle between the eyes, that's actually the tumor, and the colored lines represent the levels of dose. So you can kind of read them like an elevation map. So you can actually see there's no radiation between the eyes, and that's good because that can cause blindness. So this one kind of had me a little bit nervous, but I'm not the one that has to face this on the treatment table. This is the view that the previous patient actually would have had. Imagine literally staring down the barrel of a radioactive cannon. So I've obviously been amazed at the courage and the resiliency of a lot of our patients. But while the CyberKnife is an amazing tool, it would just kind of be a futuristic looking statue with all the people that help it and the other Linux and the department run. I'm usually behind the scenes, so it's these fine folks, the nurses, the dosimetrists, and therapists that are on the front lines of their patients every day, and I wanted to thank them, maybe embarrass them a little bit in their Halloween costumes, and also thank you guys for listening today.